Hey there! Today we are cooking with butter, flour, milk, and a potato. I'm Jessica, and what do you make of this? Baked potato soup is one of the very first things I ever learned how to cook, and I love it. It's very easy, it's very quick, and while there are lots of different ingredients that you can choose to add in as optional toppings, you really only have to have 4 things in order to make this soup: butter, flour, a potato, and some kind of liquid. Today I'm going to be using milk. Let me show you how. So I'm going to start by measuring out 2 cups of milk. Now, like I said, if you can use other things. So if dairy does not agree with you, you can absolutely use stock instead. In fact, there was one time I was going to make this soup and I didn't have as much milk as I thought I did. And then I didn't have any stock, so I ended up using water and a ramen noodle seasoning packet. It actually worked pretty well. The only thing I wouldn't recommend is soy milk. I used soy milk one time and I ended up ordering a pizza for dinner that night. But if you want a really good traditional steakhouse potato soup, milk is the key. So I'm going to start by pouring off these 2 cups of milk into a saucepan. And I'm just going to heat it on medium-low heat. We just want it warm before we add it to the base of our soup. Keep an eye on this because milk loves to boil over the second you turn your back on it. In the meantime, we are going to take 2 tablespoons of butter and get that going into our main pot for the soup. Let me adjust my heat a little bit and we're going to let that melt. Now, while the butter is melting, while the milk is warming, let's talk about a potato. So the best way for this soup to come out is to actually start with a baked potato, and I'm just going to walk you through the method of how to do a baked potato. So step 1, 1 big potato. You are going to take a fork and just poke holes all over it. If you don't do this, the potato will explode as it's cooking because there's nowhere for the steam to escape. Do not skip this step. Once you've got yourself a good holy potato, you are going to take some oil and add just a little bit to the skin of the potato. And this will help to heat the potato very evenly while it's cooking, and it will also help to crispen the skin on the outside, which makes for a really great snack later. So you get your potato nice and oiled, and at this point you have 2 options. If you are in a hurry, you can put this potato in the microwave 5 minutes per side and just keep flipping and cooking until it's soft to the touch. Or you can wrap your potato in foil, which is what I will do. Pop it into a 425-degree oven for an hour, and your potato will be nice and soft by that time. I actually prefer the oven method even though it takes longer because the skin comes out so nice and crispy, and like I mentioned, you have a really great snack either while you're cooking or later. In the interest of time, I've actually already baked a potato, so I'm just going to trade that out and leave that here to cool a little bit while we keep working our way on our soup. So I'm going to just give this milk a quick little stir. Looking good. A little whisk on this butter. And you may have noticed my hands are actually quite oily, so I will be right back. I'm just going to wash up real quick. All right, so our butter is melted. Our milk is starting to heat up very nicely. It's just starting to get a little bit of steam coming out of it, and that's right where we want it to be. The next thing I'm going to be doing is adding some flour to the butter. So the basic ratio for this soup base is for every 1 cup of liquid that you use, you want to have 1 tablespoon of flour and 1 tablespoon of melted butter. Or if you don't have butter, you can absolutely use margarine or oil, whatever works for you, whatever you have. You know the rules. All right, so this flour is going to be going into the butter. Again, 2 tablespoons. And I am just going to give this a stir. So you want to mix the butter and flour mixture for about a minute or 2. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to make sure the flour actually has a chance to toast in the butter. Just like when you toast or roast nuts or seeds, it tastes a lot better. Because flour is made of wheat and wheat is a grain, it also takes on a really nice nutty flavor as it toasts, and that adds just a really nice extra depth of flavor to anything that you're putting flour in. That's why a baked cake tends to taste better than the cake batter itself. That flour has had a chance to toast. That's why it tastes so good. So we're gonna do that same kind of idea right here in the pan. I'm just going to adjust my heat slightly warmer because what you will start to see happening is it's going to start to bubble a little more furiously as the flour basically melts into the butter. You'll also start to smell it as it cooks because it's going to smell surprisingly nutty. If you've never toasted flour in a pan of butter like this, you would be really surprised how very nutty it starts to smell. And basically your nose knows when it's ready. So this is starting to look good. I don't know if you can see here, but it's starting to change color. It's getting more of a very pale yellow color. And I'm going to just keep going until it turns the very lightest shade of tan brown. That is right about perfect. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my warm milk and add that to my butter and flour mixture. By the way, in the cooking world, this is called a roux. So I'm gonna get a whisk handy. And the reason I have this milk heated, I should mention this by the way, is because you don't want to add cold liquid to warm melted butter, or else the butter is gonna go, oh my gosh, that was so cold. And it's gonna seize up, and that's what will make lumps in your base, as well as in any sauce that you're going to be adding liquid to the flour. So say you're making a gravy, same idea. You do want to have a warm liquid that you're adding to a warm butter, and that way everything is just really nice and mellow and it blends together very beautifully. So into the pot with the milk. Don't pour it all in at once. That will actually help to incorporate things a little bit better. Got my handle moving around here. Once you've added the first little bit and whisked a second, you can put the rest. I'm just going to turn off the heat on that pan. Okay, and now that you have your warm liquid with your warm butter, you just want to mix this very vigorously until you have no more lumps. As long as everything is warm as you're doing this step, it should all come together. It just might take a couple of seconds of whisking to really help incorporate everything. Basically what's happening is the butter and the flour are going to be melting into the milk, and that's what's going to make for a really nice smooth base. So this base, more cooking terms, is called a bechamel, and it's basically just a basic white sauce. This is the secret for any kind of cream of blank soup that you might like to eat. So cream of broccoli starts with this base. Corn chowder starts with this base. So if you have any other kind of vegetables that you like to have in a creamed soup in your fridge, or just going to the grocery store, you can absolutely put anything more than potatoes in here. I've even done a can of clams, salmon that was cooked, and made a really nice salmon or clam chowder. So this is a really beautiful base for any kind of creamed soup that you like to eat. Today I'm doing potato because I really do love just the simplicity of a good baked potato soup. Okay, so while we chatted about that, this has now come together very nicely. I'm just going to pull out the whisk for a second. And to this, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt. You might want to start with a half a teaspoon and go up from there based on your tastes. I have made this soup many, many times. I know I like it on the slightly saltier side, so I add a little extra. I find that, especially for the potato soup, the milk is very sweet, and even the potatoes have a little bit of a sweetness to them. So adding a little extra salt helps to kind of balance out that sweetness. I'm also going to add about a half a teaspoon of black pepper. And again, this is to your taste. So if you want to add more, add more. If you want less, add less. That's totally okay. And I'm just going to give this another quick whisk and lower my heat very slightly, because you don't want this to come to a hard boil, or else the milk might actually start to burn on the bottom of the pot. That would ruin your entire batch of potato soup. Okay. Quick whisk here. And this is a great point to grab a spoon and just give your base a little taste. Oh, nailed it. It's so good. Okay. So while this warms together, let's get going on this potato. Just going to unwrap this guy, and there we go. We'll deal with that later. Grab a knife, and you're just going to cut this potato the long way. And grab a spoon. And basically all you're going to do is just scoop out the inner part of the potato. Leave the skin behind. It's a really, really delicious snack, but it creates kind of a tough mouthfeel in the soup when you go to take a bite if you get a chunk of potato skin. So you don't want that. But what I like to do while I'm cooking, this is kind of like my chef's privilege, is save the potato skin, dip it in a little bit of sour cream, and you've got a pretty good snack. So if you can't wait for dinner to be ready, do that. Okay. Bonus points if you have just a little bit of potato left over on the skin. Just makes it extra good. Okay, and then this one, same thing. We're just going to scoop out that potato. Let go. There we go. And I did get a little bit of potato skin on this guy. I'm going to scrape that off. All right, let's just do that. So skins off to the side. These, just kind of cube them into little bite-sized pieces. You do not have to be fancy about this. You don't have to be pretty about it. It's going to break apart as you continue to stir the soup, and I have actually found that if you have different shapes and sizes of potato piece, it actually gives the soup a little more texture and a little more character than if everything was exactly the same in uniform. Makes it taste a little more homemade that way, which it is, so that makes sense. All right, these are nice and cut up. I'm just going to get this potato into the soup base, like so. Give my hands a quick wipe. And give this one more stir to bring it all together. So this is actually the entire potato soup. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes to let the potatoes and the soup base kind of warm through, mix together a little bit, but just give it a stir every couple of seconds, and once everything is nice and warm, you're gonna be ready to plate. So I'm gonna just break up a few of these bigger potato chunks. That's looking good. I'm going to give this a minute or two just to warm through all the way, and in the meantime, I'm going to tidy this up so that we can get plating. All right, so our soup is warmed through. It's time to serve it up. So we are just going to take this soup and ladle it into a couple of bowls here. I'll try to keep it even so that way nobody fights over who gets the bigger bowl. I know what that's like. All right. 2 for that one. 2 for this one. All right, so at this point, like I mentioned, this is the bulk of the soup. You could absolutely eat it just like that, and I will be honest with you, I tend to eat it this way most of the time because I love the simplicity of it. However, if you want this to be super ultra steakhouse potato soup, you can add things like sour cream or cheese or chives or bacon or all of them. That's what we're gonna be doing today. So we'll do a dollop of sour cream. Like so. A little sprinkle of cheese. I always like to do the cheese next just so it can kind of melt down in the soup. It will melt more as you stir it, but I like to give it a head start. A little bit of cheese there. Some chives or green onions. A little sprinkle all around to make it pretty. And last but not least, some bacon bits. So if you don't eat pork, you can leave the bacon out. You can use imitation bacon bits. You can use turkey bacon. Like I said, use as much or as little of these things as you want. They are totally optional, but they do make for a pretty awesome bowl of soup. There we go. We have got a beautiful steakhouse bowl of potato soup. 4 main ingredients, 4 optional ingredients. Mix and match as you please. But that right there is gonna be a great meal. If you really wanna stretch this into a bigger meal, you can absolutely do like a side salad and some nice crusty bread to go with it. This right here is a really hearty lunch, sometimes even just a nice light supper. I hope you enjoy. And those are my secrets to a quick and easy baked potato soup. This recipe can be found in the description below. Please like and subscribe for more videos. I'm Jessica. Thanks for watching.